This is It's Rocket Sauce from YouTube and Twitter, and you're listening to an It's Rocket Sauce Productions Flock Talk, produced exclusively by me. It's Rocket Sauce. Enjoy!
Hello, everybody! It is Flock Talk, episode 6. We're talking gaming aspirations. I'm Myles, and joined with Chris and Kathryn as usual. But first, we're going to be doing some hot topics.
Hot topics.
And today, I've got a story for both of you.
Oh boy.
Let me tell you, I returned to the scene of a crime recently.
That's good. That's always smart.
I went back into that EB Games I went in a few months ago, Chris. So there was a special promotion where you trade in 2 games and you can get one of the cheaper new releases for free.
Okay.
So there's $40 games, and one of these games is Yakuza, the remake of the first one.
Right.
And it's only $40. I had a couple games on the list, some decent games like Pokemon Omega Ruby.
Right.
And Super Smash Brothers, both on the 3DS. So I go into the EB Games and I say, I saw this promotion. I didn't see it for specifically Yakuza, but I saw it for a bunch of other games that are about the same price. Can we make this trade-in? And I get the manager, and the manager says, unfortunately, that promotion is not available for Yakuza. And I say, okay. And he says, but you can trade in both of these games for Dragon Quest Heroes 2. And
Dragon Quest Heroes 2.
And I say, well, I don't want Dragon Quest Heroes 2. And why are you trying to...
You can't have that beautiful thing you wanted. Instead, you can have this delightful piece of poo.
I'm sure the game is fine. I don't know anything about it.
I'm sure it's great.
It's just that's not the game I wanted.
And you don't want to start at 2.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I say, that's not what I wanted. And then he says, but this is a full price game. And you can trade your 2 games in for a full price game if that game is Dragon Quest Heroes 2. But I'm like, but I don't want it. He's like, well, if you would like to take advantage of our enjoyment guaranteed policy, you can trade in those 2 games for Dragon Quest Heroes 2. And if you don't like it, the following day you can trade it in for full store credit, which is $90.
But then you can just get Yakuza 2.
Yes. And then he's like, then you will be able to pre-order Yakuza, and you will still have $50 credit.
What?
This is the manager who's telling me this. And then I go, well, this sounds amazing. Can I trade the game in the day I pick it up so it saves me a trip? And he says no.
He says, no, of course not. You have to go home first.
And he's like, who knows, you might like it. And I say, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That game, one second, that game needs to be in a house first.
Yes.
That's the condition. It
has
to have gone to a home, and then it needs to come back here.
Yeah. It actually has summoning sickness. It has to spend an upkeep on your side of the board before you can use it.
Maybe they're running a social experiment to find out how dirty your home is. So you have to bring the game home, rub it around on something, and then bring it back. It's like swabbing your mouth.
They probe your home with Dragon Quest Heroes too.
I don't think it's any of these things. I think they weren't expecting their managers to call out this own little loophole.
That's so stupid. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. No wonder these businesses are going out of business.
So, day 1, I trade in the games, pre-order Dragon Quest Heroes. It comes out the following day. I go pick it up. Day 3 is the big day. Day 3 is the day where either I'm stuck with Dragon Quest Heroes 2 because I've been hoodwinked.
Yeah.
or I get the trade-in. So I go into the EB Games. The manager's not there on day 3.
Yep.
And the person who is there on day 3 is the cashier I got a few months ago, who was new and didn't know what they were doing.
Now she's got a few months under her belt, though.
Yeah, and she probably got in a ton of trouble for what happened that time.
Yeah, maybe. So I bring in the game, and I ask to trade it in, and she turns to her colleague, and her colleague's like, no. He's like, you can't trade in towards a pre-order. If you have a game, you have to take something that's in the store. And then I'm like, but it's sealed. And he's like, oh, it's sealed. That's fine. So if I did what the manager told me to do and open the game and try it out, I wouldn't have been able to do that. But since I don't care, I'm not going to try out Dragon Quest Heroes 2 for a day.
You weren't interested.
I got $90 credit. So I pre-ordered Yakuza and I pre-ordered the new Uncharted, and it's going to cost me like an extra $6 or $7 for the other.
Doesn't it just kind of feel like that particular store location was just moving money around? Like they had a bunch of inventory and they wanted to play a shell game with you.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that like just what that kind of feels? And that is kind of the beginning. That's what I think is the beginning of the end of like that kind of business model. Like once you start just moving money around to move money around.
So I think that one of the interesting things about this business model is that I think a lot of stores are doing this where they have individual store targets, right? Like you have to get X number of pre-orders for Dragon Quest Heroes 2, right?
Yeah.
And whichever store gets the most pre-orders gets some extra bonus. So they're going to have a bunch of pre-orders for Dragon Quest Heroes 2, but they're not counting how many of them are being returned the day after.
Yeah.
Right? So he turned this one transaction, which was me trading in 2 games and pre-ordering 1 game, into me trading in 3 games and pre-ordering 3 games. So if you're not looking at the overall cost of things and you're just looking at the wrong analytics, you could see it as being a more profitable situation for them than it actually was.
Sure. I mean, it may be, and I don't know EB Games' business model, right? I don't know what their corporate structure is. I'm just throwing things against the wall here. But it's probably the case that these are not like franchises, that they're all just run directly from the main office, and the main office has a bunch of things the store operator has to tick off boxes, and somehow that gets back and is profitable. Who knows how all of that works, but it doesn't make a lot of sense, and I can't imagine that this keeps up for very long, especially with the transition to direct-to-consumer sales of games through like the PS4, through Steam. EB Games, physical stores can't be long for this world, especially if they're like pulling stuff like this.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the sort of thing that happened to the housing market.
It just seems like
the Big Short, Big Short of EB Games.
Well, and because most of the money I would imagine in these stores is made off of the used sales, right? Like they've got a bunch of inventory they bring in, and then it's all the extra money made off of the used games. But who knows? It all just seems weird to me.
It does. But another thing that seemed weird and turned out to be amazing was this podcast, S-Town. Kathryn.
Oh yeah, that's my hot topic, Myles. Stay off. I started listening to, because there was like a lot of press and a lot of like really good early reviews for this podcast called S-Town. It's an NPR serial podcast production. Have you listened to it, Chris?
I have listened to it. I've listened to a few of them.
Okay, yeah, like you just need to get a few episodes in to kind of get a sense of what it is. But there's this big air of mystery around it, and what I could tell from what I was reading from like early reactions to it was that I didn't want to know anything when I started listening to it. So I listened to the first serial podcast, and I loved that. And I just couldn't get into the second one. Did you listen to this serial?
I listened to the first serial set, the first season.
Yeah.
And then I didn't get into the second season because I think there wasn't much of a mystery there. I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably, and I guess, I don't know, maybe I just was less interested in the story itself. I don't know, but I still think it was done really well, and the quality is great. And S-Town has that same level of quality, but it's a very different format of storytelling, and it's like and podcasting, right? Like it's taking it to another level, I guess. So when you first listen to S-Town, it feels a lot like Serial, the first season of Serial,
right?
But you quickly realize it changes into something else, and I want this to be pretty spoiler free, so.
But like, just basically, what's the first episode?
It's very similar to Serial season 1, where there's like an air of mystery around a death, like a covered up murder kind of thing, and it's one particular person, John B. McLemore, who lives like in a small town in Alabama that he calls town. That's what the S stands for. I'll bleep that out. But he's sure that there's some kind of like cover up over this murder that happened in his town that involves, like, you know, the rich, affluent family and government and police and stuff like that, like a big conspiracy. And he starts contacting NPR and trying to get them to look into this. And eventually they finally bite and start this story. But I always tell people, like, if you could just, like, get to the end of episode 2 before you decide whether or not you're going to go on. It's only 7 episodes. They're 1 hour long. You're committing 7 hours of your life to this series. It's not a big ask, right?
Yeah.
And I think that if you can get to the end of episode 2, that you're done the next day. You know,
you're gonna listen to it.
You're gonna just power through the rest of it.
I guess except for me, because I guess I got to the end of episode 4 or 5, and I kind of stopped because I figured out basically where it was going. Maybe I don't know exactly where it's going, and maybe this was part of the problem with a recent show I just watched where I, like, stopped watching an episode halfway through, and then I watched the entire episode, and I was like, that was not at all what I expected. But
it's possible. Like, if you've kind of, like, written it off by that point, I think it will offer you a few more things.
Okay.
Right? Like, I
Sure.
think that, and it's an hour and a half. If you're, like, an hour or 2 away from finishing, just give it an hour or 2. You're going to the gym.
Finish.
Turn it on while you're at the gym. Get on the treadmill and, like.
I am very experienced with the fizzle.
and you know what? I'm like you too. Case in point, I still have, like, an episode and a half of Battlestar Galactica to watch. And they got to Earth, and then I was like, oh, well, I'm not interested now.
But you've had an episode and a half of Battlestar Galactica to go for 7 years.
Yes. I don't think I'm going to watch that last episode and a half.
S-Town, without giving anything away, I don't think, is like a really deep dive into a person's life.
Yes.
I don't think that's giving really much away.
No.
It's a really deep dive into a person's life. I don't know. There have been some recent articles that I've read, especially in light of that recent podcast that came out about Richard Simmons.
Oh, right.
About, like, how deep into people's lives do we really want to go? And, like, where's the line between, you know, a deep dive and intrusiveness? And I'm not sure where you think that S-Town lands on, but that's, I think, something.
I guess maybe the difference I would say through that is Richard Simmons didn't ask for that podcast to be made.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And S-Town might not necessarily have been what
that person.
Well, it's John B. McLemore. Like, he's the one that invites NPR to come and investigate this. And it may not end up or go the way that he wants it to go, but he very much instigates it. Whereas Richard Simmons, the man just wants to be left alone. Like, and that is now, like,
that's the story.
That is it.
I mean,
like,
either he wants to be left alone.
Miles told me this, like, have you heard all this stuff about, like,
Richard Simmons?
And he's like, like, all these people, like, they're worried about him, and so they went and they found out he was okay. And I was like, this is the trending story? Like, why is this news? Why are you telling this to me? I was like, yeah, they went and, like, it was weird because the maid said go away, but then they didn't go away and talk to him, and he's okay. He just wants to be left alone. And I don't know, like, there probably is more to it, but I'm like, why is this a trending story? Why is it always popping up on the side of my Facebook feed?
Well, because, first of all, Facebook knows that you're definitely interested in that.
I know.
And that's a whole other issue.
They know me very well.
Second of all, they decided to make, like, a 1-hour session podcast, and the whole thing could have just been wrapped up by knocking on the door a few more times earlier on.
It was just like...
It's like Geraldo's
Okay, let's
vault.
instead spend 6 hours speculating on what's going on behind that door. Instead of knocking on the door and opening it up and looking and being like, oh, nothing.
No, it's like...
So,
and
but then that's not a good podcast, so...
Right. And
Sure,
we're probably,
take advantage, I guess.
Most of the people listening to this are probably too young, and I think I'm even too young for this reference, but Geraldo's Vault, where he spent 2 hours of a special in the 80s being like, we're going to open up Al Capone's vault, we're going to do it, and everyone watched. And then they go into the vault, and spoilers, there's nothing in the vault. Like, he opens it up, and he's like, there's a lot of dust in here, and, like, just egg on his face. And that's what I feel like the Richard Simmons podcast fundamentally became, and probably a bit more problematic.
Yeah. And also, comparing it to Geraldo Rivera shows how off it was.
Sure.
It's like the Schrodinger's cat podcast, right? Like, it's the cat dead or alive. The whole, just open the box.
just look. Anything that gets into the vicinity, like the gravitational pull of a Geraldo comparison, is bad news. Like just the gravitational pull of that planet. Just it's a circle. It's driving you down to the bottom of the toilet. I think that's there you go. That's my mixed metaphor of what I think of a podcast that I've never listened to, the Richard Simmons podcast.
And I never will. Because I know how it ends with like no ending. It's not a story.
Please go away. All right. That's the end of that podcast.
Everything okay in there?
Yes.
So, Chris, we actually had
Yes.
a question on the Cartridge Club forums for you, basically.
It's about time.
It comes from Matt Bandy, and the question is, "Hi guys."
Yeah, can we read it like that? Hey guys.
Hi guys. I recently started getting into tabletop games,
Oh, read
but
it.
I'm very ignorant about what's
No,
fun
stop.
or what games to play. Do you have any recommendations on what a newbie to tabletop games should play? So far, I've played Settlers of Catan, Exploding Kittens, and Russian Roulette. No, I made up the last one. And a few other deck building games.
Russian roulette,
Thanks.
but I want something a little more exciting.
I got into board games from 13 Zametti.
Oh man, 13 Zanetti.
I watched this movie called The Deer Hunter.
I need something more like
More
that.
exhilarating.
I brought home this board game, Deer Hunter, the board game.
Oh no. Okay, now let's answer this question seriously.
But there were no bullets. Should I write the maker?
Should I say it? No.
Okay, so I was thinking about how to answer this question, and I'm going to make a few assumptions right off the bat. Thanks for sending me the question, Matt. I appreciate that you think that I can answer it. The first thing I'm going to assume is that you're going to be playing games with other people newer to the hobby. You're not sitting down with like 4 people that have all read through the entirety of, say, the rule book to something like Warhammer and understand all of it. Like, these are people that don't want to read rules generally. They're people that just want to sit down and play games. And then I'm going to also, in that kind of vein, assume that you're playing with normal, well-adjusted human beings. And both of those things, I think, go hand in hand
Also,
together.
kudos to you for finding a small group of well-adjusted human
You know
beings
what?
to play with.
And
that's tough
the
to
first. That's the first battle. In board gaming, you can, like, you sit down with people and then you play games with them and you're like, I don't want to play games with these people anymore.
do. I hate when you discover that 10 minutes into the first
Yeah,
game and
10
it's
minutes
like,
into
I'm
the
here all night. Oh boy.
Someone's screaming about why did you trade him sheep in the first 2 turns, and you're like, all right, I need a parachute. Okay, so I'm gonna give you some suggestions for some for some games for newbies, but that will also stick around and not get old, because I think that can be a problem. Like, you pick up something like a small card game and it gets old after 5 plays, and then you got to go buy another thing and it just sits around in your apartment doing nothing for years. And
I think Cash and Guns is a big problem.
Yeah.
That game is a game that is very appealing to new people
Yeah.
into board games, and it has no replay value.
you can play that 5 times and then you're like, why do I have all of these foam guns? I do not want this in my house anymore. The trade-off with Cash and Guns, though, is that it's cheap in comparison to some of the other games that can be as fun as 5 playthroughs.
And also, if you're the type
Yeah.
of person who's always trying to get more people into games,
Yeah.
then Cash and Guns is a good one to have around because
Yeah.
it's an easy one to introduce to people.
Okay, so recommendations. A game that plays amazingly from 2 to 5 people, that will probably never get old if you play it over and you never forget it, kind of deal. If you play it enough, it'll never get old. 2 to 5 people is called Concordia. If you can find it, you should buy it. There's no reason not to. It's probably as easy or easier to learn than Settlers of Catan and will last you forever. It's in the same vein as a Euro game. There's no trading. It takes Settlers of Catan and gets rid of the trading aspect, which I feel after a few playthroughs of Settlers of Catan is going to become the most angering part of Settlers of Catan. So Concordia, there's no trading. It's card play. It's map control. It's really good. Give it a shot. It's on the more expensive side of what I'm going to suggest. I think it's probably $50 to $60. It may not be available in all stores, but I don't think it's out of print. I think they sell it well enough that if it's not available right now, it'll be available soon enough. That would be the
I
game.
don't know where he's from, but if
I think he's from the U.S.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Because
so
in Toronto, we're very lucky because we have a lot of board game cafes where we can try out some of these games that are
Yeah.
harder to find and not have to invest. So I don't know if there's something like that in your neighborhood.
sure.
You can look into something like that.
I'm also suggesting games that you will be fine owning. Like, there's no reason to test this out. This
We
is
should
good.
probably also write this down.
Yeah.
We've never
Yeah.
played Concordia.
Concordia is amazing.
Okay. We're coming over to play it sometime.
Yes.
Okay.
Come play Concordia.
Okay.
In the 3 to 5 player kind of negotiation category, I'd say pick up Sheriff of Nottingham. Sheriff of Nottingham is so good, so easy to understand. And it's easy to understand because everything you're doing in the game is something you would do in real life. So in Sheriff of Nottingham, you're playing people who are trying to go through customs, and one person is playing the customs officer, and everyone loads up these little bags with goods and then just passes them to the customs officer and basically says, let me buy, maybe I'll bribe you. And it's just a negotiation about how much it's going to cost to get past the customs officer. And you guys have played it, right?
That Chris says it's like what he would do in real life, and he's talking about bribing customs officers.
You know,
and
when
we
you're at the
played with
airport-
him, and he lies a lot, and he also tries to milk you for as much money as possible when he's the customs guy. So it's funny that you compare it to your real life.
This was the one game I was hoping would make your recommendations list.
Oh, okay.
Only because I love a good bluffing game. Like,
Yeah.
that's like my favorite mechanic in games is bluffing. So having a game that's built so strongly around bluffing keeps it fresh too, because you can keep changing your own personal style of how you take on that game, and you can build a reputation and then flip that reputation, and the game is fresh again.
Right. And people who you don't know, people who are new to games will understand what's happening immediately. And you'll get to see how they would play this kind of game immediately without having to like tell them how they should be playing the game. And on top of that, it's a bluffing game where people who don't like to bluff don't have to bluff. And that's key, because in a lot of these lying, bluffing games, there are some people that don't like to lie or are not good at lying. And this gives them just the ability to just bypass all of that and say, I've got 5 apples in here, and just have 5 apples in there. And then it's all on the sheriff to figure out if that person's being truthful or not. So really good, not expensive at all. I think it's probably $30 to $40. Probably.
And this is Canadian, right? So
yeah, it's
Alright.
it's
Like
not an expensive game at all.
$1.50 US.
Yeah. they'll probably pay you to take
Yeah,
it.
they'll just pay you to take it off your hands. One more recommendation before I get to my party game recommendation. But
Ooh, okay.
anyway, yeah, I thought about this. This is what you get when you ask me a question. You get a quality answer that's well thought out.
And he has a month to think about it. I'm just kidding.
This is value added. So there you go. Kind of more of a strategic game. So if you have some people that are into a bit more of strategy things, attacking each other, I would suggest getting a game called Tammany Hall. It's about immigrants moving to America in the turn of the century, the turn of the 20th century. It's like an area control game in the style of, what's that big area control game with
Risk?
the tower in the middle?
Just kidding. Oh,
El Grande?
El Grande?
Yeah. It's like El Grande, a bit more of a theme than El Grande, so it'll keep you coming back for the theme a bit more than El Grande does, because El Grande, El Grande, the theme kind of fades away after the first play or two. But with Tammany Hall, I feel like it sticks around. You're trying to control boroughs in order to be elected to become the mayor, and then as the mayor, you get to give out favors to your friends, and then they're all trying to become the mayor, and they're all trying to get the votes. And you're trying to like become the most liked person among the Germans or the Italians and all of that. It's negotiaty without being really attacky, but you can get really attacky and you can't really tear down what someone's built, which is fun too, because in attacky kind of games, the worst part is when someone's built something and then everyone gangs up on them and tears down what they've built. But in this game, you can't really do that. You can't tear down what someone's built, but you can be attacky and negotiating, and I think that's a good place for a strategy game to be. And it is 2 pages of rules, which again will make your well-adjusted friends okay with listening to a 10-minute explanation of a game rather than... Here's the thing. This is why I'm giving you this specific recommendation. If you pick up something that maybe you really like Game of Thrones, the board game. Like, I really want to play a game of Game of Thrones, the board game, right? But the problem is that it probably takes half an hour to explain. And while the people around the table may be as interested in me, they may not be. And then it's kind of like...
You've lost their interest before they've even started.
Right. And learning a game is the worst part. Unless everyone loves the theme of the game you're going for, and the game is really good because you've wasted all that time learning it, pick something that's just going to be good for everyone and is short to learn until you get a group of people that want to take a deep dive into something more complicated. And if you have a lot of people, if you have an abundance of riches in terms of people who are coming over to your house constantly to play games, I'd probably pick up One Night Ultimate Werewolf because it comes with an app, and the apps are fun, and it's still a bluffing, negotiating game where you're trying to figure out who the werewolf is, but the app does all of the heavy lifting, so you don't even have to actually teach anyone the game outside of 5 minutes.
And if you want to see somebody play that game on YouTube to get an idea of it, the Game Grumps did a
Table Flip.
Yeah,
right?
Table Flip. They did a pretty good episode where they all play Ultimate Werewolf, so you can see if that's the sort of thing you'd like to do.
Yeah.
It can play like up to 100 or something like that, right? Like,
I don't know if it can play up to 100, but it can play a lot of people.
Yeah.
It can play as many people as you're getting to your house, unless you live in the Playboy Mansion. If the Playboy Mansion is still a thing, is that that's a real 90s reference?
I don't think Hugh Hefner's playing Ultimate Werewolf with everyone that comes.
Oh, he's playing Ultimate Werewolf.
A version of Ultimate Werewolf.
Who wants to
That's what
play
the kids are
Ultimate
calling it
Werewolf?
these days.
Oh boy.
For me personally, like my favorite games currently are probably, what's that camel racing game?
Oh, Camel
Camel
Cup.
Cup.
Camel Cup, I really like, and I really like the Castles of Burgundy.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
but
right.
that's a little bit. When you actually start playing, it's really easy, but it's a little like you kind of need to be familiar with European style games.
I think so.
To pick it up quickly. But
Yeah.
Camel Cup, I bought for my 10-year-old niece, and my 7-year-old niece loves it, and my mom loves it, right? So it's a kind of
Right.
cross-generational game that's just a lot of fun, and it is pretty easy. If you know how to play it, it's an easy game to sort of just teach other people, and it plays quickly. So I find with almost any game, if once everyone has played a game once, then the second time is generally a little more fun. Right, because
Yes.
especially anything that involves a little bit of strategy, any amount of strategy, you need one game in you just to see how the strategies even play out, right?
Right.
Because you don't know which one to adopt until you actually see how it works in the game. So I like kind of shorter games for that reason, because then you can play it and then set it up and play it again immediately, and then everyone is a little bit better at the game, and it gets a little bit more competitive, more fun. But also a good game that I like with a larger group of people is Codenames.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a good party game.
Yeah, which
It's
is
a good party game.
And it's a little minor thinker, right? It's challenge. It doesn't seem challenging, but when you actually play it, it's a little bit. It's kind of like that game Taboo, where right, because you're trying to avoid saying certain things. You're trying to avoid, but in Codenames, you're trying to make it easy enough for your teammates to guess what you're going for, but hard enough that your opponents can't, and it's a little tricky, and it's fun though. I like it.
It's also one of those games that gets better the more you drink.
And it's cheap.
Yes. What all of my games, except I guess Concordia, have in common, though, is that you get to, if you're getting into it, role play. So you get to role play as the sheriff. You get to role play as the guy who's trying to pass things through customs. In the other game I mentioned, Tammany Hall, you get to role play as like someone who's trying to get immigrants to believe them on their sides. You get to, you get to role play a turn of the century kind of.
You get to con immigrants.
You get to con immigrants, and then in the last case with One Night Ultimate Werewolf, you get to act like the town folks. So if you want to be,
you get to be a mob.
There's the game, and then if you really like role playing, there's the role playing aspect that's all on top of that. So in Codenames doesn't have that, but Codenames also good, $20,
Well, yeah,
and it's a solid game.
We should point out though that we are very lucky because we play our board games with Chris. And so that role playing comes in right away. And when he plays the sheriff, it is hard to get through that game because he makes everything difficult, but a ton of fun. So
that's nice. That's nice.
Yes. It's always fun playing games with Chris.
He aspires to be a grimy sheriff, so it's easy for him to get into character. But I aspire to do other things with gaming, as well as both of you. So we're going to go into our main topic, which is gaming aspiration. So gaming aspirations have kind of been part of my life for many years now. And I think prior to getting into video games and YouTube and Flock of Nerds, the thing that was really a big aspiration for me was Magic the Gathering, and more specifically playing on the Pro Tour for Magic the Gathering. And that was kind of an aspiration that maybe I didn't work as hard as I could have towards that, but I did come kind of close. I played in a GP at GP Ottawa. It's a Grand Prix. There was 1,300 players, and it was limited, and I made it to day 2, and I went into round 15. I was 12-2. So 12 wins, 2 losses over 2 days. And that was, if I had won that match, I would have made it onto the Pro Tour. And I did lose that match, unfortunately. I made like $500 that weekend, but it would have been really nice to make the Pro Tour, and that was...
You sound so sad. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you had, to be fair, if you had made the Pro Tour, it would have been nice, and then you would have had to, like, pay for everything yourself, right?
They cover your travel.
Oh, did they cover your travel?
Yeah, I think so.
But also, like, it qualifies you for just the next one? Or
yeah, it would just qualify me for the next one.
And then you would have to do well, right?
To make it on to the next one. It still would have been neat to plan the Pro Tour
just in one
time.
Right? Like, it would have been nice to go to just one. But you sound so sad, but it was a really amazing weekend. He was so happy that whole weekend, right? Because it was a set that he loved. And he loved playing it. And he was doing really well and getting really lucky, but also was good. Like, he was playing really well and was beating other pros. And
yeah, I think we were all following you that weekend on your progress, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did beat Tom Martell, which was kind of a big...
That's the highlight of
because, yeah, he had won a Pro Tour, not the last Pro Tour, but the Pro Tour before that. It was actually interesting. At my table, my draft pot of 8 players on day 2, I was sitting in between Tom Martell and Ari Lax. Like, there was somebody else to my left, but 2 people that had won the last Pro Tour and the Pro Tour before that one were at my draft pod. And then Tom Martell beat Ari Lax, and then I had to play Tom Martell, and I ended up winning. And it was a really great moment when I was playing against him, because I was able to... He made a play, and it was at that moment that I could actually see my win. Right? Yeah. I was like, oh, it'll be fun to lose to Tom Martell when I went up and sat across from him. But then he kind of he showed his line.
Myles wants to get magic-y. I can see him holding
he showed his line. Like, he played like his end game a little early, and then I was like,
tell.
Yeah, well, it was like, there was a card, blue and X, and you could tap X number of creatures for 2 turns. And I could see him play that and basically play out his hand. And I had the same card in my hand, and I had a dig through time. Whatever.
You see? Yeah, I know, he's trying to keep it low on the magic.
Yeah, I want people to be able to understand you don't play Magic, but it was...
He wants them to keep listening to the podcast. His Magic is only going to last for a few more minutes, so...
And you know, since then, I don't play Magic that much anymore, and we've been playing a lot of video games, and when we started Flock Talk, I had said that what I wanted to do was finish 30 games in a year. That was my new aspiration. Right. And currently, do you know how far I am on the Flock Talk challenge?
I do not, but it's
how many games do you think I've finished at this point?
I think you've probably finished 7.
Because this is halfway through.
Chris, he's named them on this on this podcast.
I named 7 last episode.
I didn't know that there was homework.
So I have 8 games left.
Whoa!
Oh, wow!
I didn't know.
And I'm currently working on Persona 5 right now, and that game is like easily over 100 hours. I'm about 65 hours into it, and it is great. I'm really digging that game. Another
It better be,
aspiration for me
65 hours.
was that I've never played a JRPG before.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know what it was all about. We saw, I think, a trailer for Persona 5, and it was very stylish. The music sounded really good. It looked really cool.
Yeah, it wasn't even on your radar of something to buy just because of the type of game it was, but we watched this one, 2-minute trailer, and, Miles was like, oh my god, it looks really good, and I was like, you would probably play this one.
So I traded in my pre-order for God of War for Persona 5.
He can pre-order God of War now if he really wants to with all of his...
Apparently you can pre-order per whatever you want for free.
Yeah. So I just go to the EB Games. And
Yeah, there's one EB Games that just gives away games, apparently.
So I got Persona 5, and I've really been enjoying it. It's got multiple systems. It's funny. It's a little bit, I would say it's a little bit racy, as it is a Japanese kind of RPG.
What exactly is racist about it?
No. Racy. Racy.
Oh, racy. Mi scusi.
It's at one point, actually the first time Kathryn was really watching me play.
I had no clue what was going on.
Yeah, the first time she was actually really watching me play Persona 5 was the one moment in the game where you go to this empty apartment with your friend and you hire an all-service maid.
Oh.
And by all-service maid, you know what I'm talking about?
All services.
All service. And the maid shows up, and it's your homeroom teacher.
Oh.
And the captain's like, what kind of game are you playing?
Yeah, what's happening
Why
here?
is this part of the game you have to play?
What is this?
And I'm like, I just want my relationship with Ryuji to get stronger.
Are you going to level up after this? I don't understand.
Oh.
That's very confused.
Oh, he's going to level up.
It sounds like something that would be on the Geraldo Rivera show. But yeah, that's my current aspiration, is to finish this JRPG and then finish 7 more decent-sized games after it.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a question. How did you feel after you lost at the magic thing?
That actual moment?
Did it feel like you had got up to the top of the mountain? Did it feel like you wanted to go higher at that point?
I was very satisfied with my accomplishments that weekend.
Yeah.
I hadn't been playing that much Magic, and to make it that deep was pretty satisfying. At the same time, when I did, as soon as I lost, I was disappointed.
Oh,
just
sure.
because, I could taste it at that point, right? And that match was actually for $500 on top of the money I won.
Right.
So it was a $500 match and a trip to the Pro Tour.
But what's interesting is that this particular, and I think it's a issue with kind of competitive Magic in general, but it didn't inspire you to put your nose to the grindstone and work harder further on, right? That wasn't a particular treadmill that after that point you wanted to get back on. And
that's correct.
Does that make sense?
Actually, yeah, it does. Actually, afterwards, the following day, the Monday, we were getting out of our hotel room, and I saw one of the commentators.
Yeah.
From the event, Brian David Marshall, in the hotel lobby, and I just came up to him and introduced myself, and I said, I was the feature match the round before the top 8, and I lost to Neil Hamburger. I lost to Neil Oliver, and he's like, oh man, and I was like, I just wanted to say I really like your coverage, and I watch it, and he was like, now I feel bad cheering for Neil Oliver, and I was like, and then he was like, so what's your next event? And I was like, I don't know, whatever.
I was like,
it's coming to Toronto.
He's a scrub.
F&M at 401 Games. I don't know. And
yeah, I felt that I felt the coverage was a little bit skewed of that particular match, but I feel like that's a professionalism thing, because if you were actually there was a David and Goliath story there that was clearly possible to make, and it just fucking flew right over his head. So God bless him, but not the correct story to be telling in that moment, I don't think.
Okay, so Neil Oliver had been on the Pro Tour and then was not on it, and so he was playing to get back on the Pro Tour.
Yeah, that's fine.
But also it was pretty bad because I don't know, I can't remember who the other commentator was, but they accidentally, like, it was Marshall Sutcliffe and whoever he was talking to, and they were like, Myles McGuinness won the match, and the one guy was like, oh, that's disappointing. And then they were like, oh, actually, no, we got it wrong. Neil won. But it was just like, why is it, like,
why is it disappointing?
Congratulations, Myles McGuinness, maybe.
Yeah, and it was also because Neil Oliver was on Team USA.
Yeah. Here, listen. Find the story that's the most compelling story. And the most compelling story is guy who's never top-8'd a Pro Tour in his whole life is almost on the cusp of it. And guy who just
GP.
Yeah, whatever. And guy who like has been there before and might get back on. To me, there's a more compelling story there that you can tell.
Also, if they just checked the Twitch chat, they would have seen people talking about the YouTube channel, which would have been another angle that they could have.
Oh yeah, there were people on there.
There were people talking about it.
Yeah.
There were people cheering on Myles in the Twitch chat. It was very cute.
Anyway, yeah, that was my aspiration.
Sorry, we keep going back to Magic.
No. And I ask you that question because I have kind of a similar story, but more about World of Warcraft. So I've heard
you wanted to be a pro WoW player?
I had deep aspirations with World of Warcraft. So I'm talking about like vanilla World of Warcraft, where you had to get 40 people in a raid, and you had to kind of organize a social group.
You had to walk everywhere for the first 40 levels.
Walk everywhere, but it was in the summer between 4th year and grad school, and there's like 6 months there where I had nothing to do, and I've just filled it with World of Warcraft. And I got into a raiding guild, and a lot of those people became not lifelong friends, but 4-year-long friends. Yes. Even after I finished World of Warcraft, I still kept in touch with those people, cool people, a lot of people from the United States, but was raiding and going on these raids, which is like just big group dungeons that would last 4 or 5 hours, especially if you would die, the party would wipe and you have to go back over again. I was playing a warrior. I was not the lead tank at that moment, but then I was one of the off tanks.
Yes.
And then I rolled for one of the bindings of Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Wind Seeker, and I got the binding, and at that point it was like, we're gonna get him the second binding. If the second binding ever comes up, we're getting him the second binding, and he's gonna we're getting him on the track to be the tank because no one else in the group had it. And then I worked for like a month doing these circles around the Arathi Highlands to get these crystals that I needed, and every night I would spend like 3 hours just like talking to people doing these like circles, doing these tracks. You'd mine a node, and then you'd go to the next node, and by the time you did the track, the first node would have respawned, so you could do constant tracks.
I know mining grinding. That was my thing.
This sounds awful.
Oh.
Sounds like Stardew Valley.
So I was on a treadmill. I finally had 100 Arcanite crystals. We got the second binding. I got the sword. It was incredible. And then I was like, I am done with this game.
Oh no!
The minute I got that sword in my hand, I was like, there's nothing left.
You didn't raid with it?
I raided like 4 or 5 times. It was also because it was time to go back to school too.
Oh, okay.
But like, it wasn't enough to keep me in the game. I had climbed the mountain. We weren't like at the best stuff yet, but there was nothing. I had done something, and ultimately, in the end, it felt hollow. The thing that actually was the thing I was building the whole time were those relationships, which was much nicer than the sword.
Right.
And that's the thing that kind of lasted. But the actual thing that I got wasn't so life-fulfilling.
So then you were disappointed when you finally
achieved your
the
goal.
Pinnacle.
Yeah, I achieved my goal. A little bit disappointing.
But you know what? The reward is in the journey, right? And
this
a
is
life
all
lesson was learned.
Ease Myles and
That's
his
true.
loss.
The journey
well,
is the
I just
reward.
didn't get an opportunity to go on the journey that I wanted.
Oh man.
Oh dear.
No. But now you're on this journey and you're enjoying it.
Yeah, this is
You're liking it, right?
Yeah.
This is better.
Life
right?
is good.
This is like, it's like a yeah. I mean, it's a fun train ride on some rocky tracks. Kathryn, what about you? Gaming aspirations.
Well, I'm not like a very good gamer, so like my aspirations are they kind of feed a little bit of my OCD. So one of the things that I always try to do is 100% a game, and we talked about this when we were on Retro Fandango that I'd like to 100% any game that tracks your percent completion. I'd like to finish 100%, but I'm not always able to. So I kind of set this bar. I'm like, well, you know what? Anything above 80% is good, but I'll aim for like 90, 95, and if I can, 100%. And one game that I feel like I generally can 100% are the Lego games. So I think one of the first games I 100%ed was Lego Indiana Jones, but that involves like I don't have the patience to finish a Lego game just on my own because it involves a lot of exploration and if you miss something you have to replay the whole level over and over again until you get it. So I'll play the whole game. I'll maybe replay every level once and try to find stuff, and then I'll just look up a walkthrough and here's all the little Lego blocks I was missing or the mini kits or something, and then I'll go back and just go directly to them and play those levels to get them. That's kind of like always in the back of my mind, like if I can I will try to 100% a game. I actually, just on an off note, I just saw, do you know the completionist? He's like, it's a YouTube channel. I
Sure.
think that's his goal, right?
I think his name's Jared or something.
Jared, I think. He 100%ed Breath of the Wild. I didn't watch the video, I just saw him tweet it. And I was like, I don't want to see too much of the game, but I'm curious to see like what it's like to 100% Breath of the Wild, because I think that's probably going to be a tough one for people to get just because it's such a huge world.
Is that something that you could see yourself trying to do?
I don't know. We only have one TV and you play Persona 5.
But
so
we could get it, but if we get a
we
Switch.
can get another TV.
If you get a but if you get a Switch,
if I got it,
the
if we got a
handheld
Switch.
aspect.
We can even get it on Wii U and you could play it on the tablet.
Oh, the Wii U tablet is heavy though. Like my hand gets like I was playing a little bit of Yoshi's Woolly World after we finished it, and I was going back and playing a couple extra levels. And I'm like, I can only play this for like half an hour before my hands just get really tired and stuff.
You'll be able to play it on the Switch tablet.
Yeah, and I think the Switch tablet maybe is lighter, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think it is.
Because it's portable, like it's smaller and more portable.
And you can also just set it up and play it with the Pro Controller.
So we're going to go get a Switch is what you're saying?
Yeah, sure, why not?
I actually have an alert that tells me every time a Switch is in stock somewhere, and every time it happens, I'm like, not today.
I've heard amazing things about the Mario Kart 8 that just came out. That is just, it fixed all the issues that were with the Wii U version. And now
the
it's
battle mode.
Now it's like essentially perfect.
Did you hear that there was a Switch bundle with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but only available in Russia?
It's a conspiracy. But
why Russia? Of all places.
Nintendo.
Sorry, we're getting off topic.
Off topic.
Off topic. That's a whole new segment. One of the other things that I want to try, and because I'm not the best gamer, it is a long-term aspiration of mine, is to someday try and complete one of the Demon, Dark Souls, Bloodborne type games.
You should.
I think that if I put my mind to it, I might be able to get through one. But I think it would take me a long time, and a lot of times, I'll admit now, sometimes, I 100%ed Lego Lego Marvel Superheroes, but I'm not very good at the flying characters, and there's some things that you have to get by completing flying races, and I would have to get Myles to do those ones for me. So I cheated a little bit, but I feel like maybe in Bloodborne, if Myles and I tackle it kind of together, then I think if I get stuck, I could call on him to help me out, because
I don't think I'm going to be very good at those games either.
Oh, I think you will be, but we've never even tried, so I feel like that's on my list of goals for this year at some point, is to tackle one of those games.
Yeah, I mean, here's my recommendation. Just skip the Dark Souls stuff. Go to Bloodborne. You guys have a PS4. Grab Bloodborne. I think I've played a few of them. I've never finished them, but I feel like Bloodborne is the one I would be more likely to finish. I'm currently in the middle of a Bloodborne playthrough.
Oh, are you?
And yeah, I'm about 40% of the way through the game, I think.
Only 60 more to go.
Jesus, that game, man.
But we have a friend who tells us Bloodborne is one of the harder ones, right?
Because he's used to shield and sword as opposed to dodging.
Oh, okay. So it's your style of play.
Yeah, I would skip to Bloodborne. If you're not dying to play through shield and sword and slow, ponderous movements, Bloodborne's a lot more actiony of those games. So I just
I
skip
played
straight to
a
Bloodborne.
warrior in WoW, so I feel like my instinct, and I usually play a warrior in like Dragon Age games, so I'm used to just like running up to stuff and like hacking them in the
Yeah,
face.
Bloodborne's the thing. Bloodborne, I think, will be the one. That game's nonsense. That game's great. Not only the getting good at it, right? The getting good, the fighting monsters, but the exploration of these games is so much better than almost anything I've played in the last 3 to 5 years.
Like
Like,
discovering things in it?
discovering things. Every inch of progress, you feel like a king. When you down one of these, when you beat one of these bosses, you feel so good. You've never felt like this
Really?
in a video game. You're like, ah, you're breathing heavily. You're on edge. You're like, I can't believe that I did that. That was like a mountain I climbed.
Really?
It's incredible.
That sounds fun. We have a
It's
friend
not
who-
fun on the way to
Right.
beating that
I feel like
boss.
it'll be hard to get to that point. But we have a friend, Cal. He does like Dark Souls 3 Let's Plays.
Sure.
And he's so good at the game, so like I'll just watch him play because like he's like he thinks like I do because he's just like, I think there's something here. I gotta search this whole area before So I like watching him play because he does. A lot of people just like, I don't want to go down there, and they'll just run off and like try to streamline. Where he's just like, oh, there's this like little area down there, and I think I can get to it, so I'm gonna try. And then he'll spend like 20 minutes trying to get there, and I will watch because I need to see all of it. So I can't imagine what it'd be like exploring it. But then they get attacked all the time, and you have to be ready. Like you can't just run around.
And that game, that is especially Bloodborne, I'm not sure about the other games, but I'm pretty sure that they don't have mini maps. So the exploration, the keeping everything is in your head, but you learn it. Like you learn where you're going. And it doesn't matter that maybe you don't think you're good at it right now, because the game's going to make you get good at that.
And do you realize it's happening?
You're like, I can't believe, like, I know the map of most of the levels, say in Mega Man 2, right? Because I played it over and over again as a kid. But I don't know, like, if you put Fallout 4 in front of me, and I played that game for like 25 hours, I couldn't tell you where anything is.
I don't know where my suit is in Fallout 4. My suit broke, and I can't remember where I left it. It's near a red truck.
Like, who
but
cares?
I don't know where that red truck is.
That game, you know what? I just had the minimap on the whole time because if you want to let me do that, I'll do that. But this game, you have to know that thing's up there, and you will know that thing's up there because it made you get good at it. Play Bloodborne. Hey,
but
everyone,
it worries
play
me because
Bloodborne.
I'm bad with directions. I can't.
It also makes the developers better. Right? Like, they're like, we can't rely on people just using a mini-map, so we have to make the level design so intuitive and good that it teaches them how to understand our levels.
I watched Kel play, and he was, like, in a room. He's like, I know there's something in this room, but he kept, like, dying because, like, things would just keep attacking him. But eventually, he hit a wall, and then a staircase appeared. I was like, oh my god, that's part of the game? Like, just hitting a wall. Like, just looks like a regular wall, and you hit it with your sword, and then a staircase appears. I will go nuts playing this game, though, if that's what you have to do to discover stuff.
Okay, but the thing is, let's say you go into an area and get, like, killed by a guy who's waiting just around the corner. Okay, now on your next run through, that guy will be in the exact same spot. The guys don't change where they are. So now you've learned something about the place you're going to. Like, you have to start from the beginning of where you were, but now you know that. And so when you're going around the corner, you now know he's there, you kill him, but then the next thing that was around the next corner kills you. But now you know that. So now you like learn on your way to, being cautious and all that.
Can you end up going the wrong way and ending up somewhere that you're totally underpowered and...
Not especially in Bloodborne, not at the beginning.
Okay.
It'll take you a while before you like hit that point. So I really wouldn't worry about that. And if you're
I
good
always
enough,
worry about that.
If you're good enough, my understanding is that there's nothing you can't tackle.
I've accidentally like when I was playing WoW, when I didn't know anything about it, I would end up in pretty evil places and die quickly.
But WoW's not the kind of game where you can tackle it even if you're below level.
Going back to one of the things that you said, like when you die and then you learn something and now you can beat it, but you're going to die at the next part and then you're going to learn something. Yeah. It almost sounds like if Groundhog Day was a horror movie.
Yes.
And you keep reliving the same thing, but you learn something and now you can progress a little bit more. You can do something else on this next Groundhog Day.
That's the game. It's Groundhog Day, the game. And remember how much fun he has at the end?
Yeah, that's true.
Is the main character at all like Bill Murray?
He's mostly Bill Murray.
Okay.
Mostly Bill Murray, yeah.
Okay.
I'd say that
Percentage-wise, how Bill Murray is the protagonist?
13%.
Oh, that's not mostly.
Where'd you go to school? 13%.
13%.
You know what, though? I am inspired, though. I am
Play it.
inspired to at least try it. So
Put it in,
at
guys.
some point in this year, we will report back on our attempt at Bloodborne.
I'll be playing the game, and then I'll die, and like the "you died" thing will come up,
Yes.
and then my wife will be sitting beside me, and she'll laugh. She'll be like, "Ha, that's hilarious! You died." And I'll be like,
Is it
"Oh
hilarious every time, though?
yeah." It's not hilarious every time. You want to throw the controller at the screen, but if you feel like you want to throw the controller at the screen, aren't you feeling something? And isn't
Yes.
that just
Yeah.
what we're looking for in every game? To feel
I just
something.
want to always feel like I need to throw a controller at a screen. That's the emotion I love the most.
It's the
Like-
only time I feel alive.
If it's making you angry, then you were obviously on edge before that. So like, I feel like those games are doing something else that, something like Fallout 4 isn't.
You have sold us.
So we're not the only ones about to embark on a quest in the Demon Souls Bloodborne universe. We are sending somebody else on that quest by giving them Demon Souls on the
Oh.
PS3,
That's
which was
right.
our prize for Flock Talk for this month. And I have a winner. Chris, drumroll, please.
Ta-da.
It's Bill from STC Podcast. Bill, congratulations. You have won Demon Souls on the PS3. Send me your mailing address and we'll get that to you
Yay,
shortly.
Bill.
Huzzah.
Chris
Thank
is
you
really
for
excited about it.
entering.
And if you would like a chance to win a prize next month, all you need to do is tweet at Flock of Nerds using the hashtag FlockTalk and tell us your gaming aspirations, or let us know some of your board game reviews, or tell me how long you think it's going to be before EB Games goes out of business, or what you thought about S-Town.
All kinds of things you could tell us. Just talk to us.
We just want interaction.
Please talk to us. Please.
We're very lonely out here.
And that's it for the main topic, but we got a few odds and ends we need to cover.
Odds and ends.
Let's go through some quick odds and ends.
All right, odds and ends, super quick from me. I have finished a video game called Rollers of the Realm, Chris. Rollers of the Realm.
Rollers of the Realm.
Rollers.
Oh boy.
That's a good vocal exercise.
What is-
Rollers of the Realm.
What is this game about? Is it about like a group of women getting their hair done in medieval times?
I wish. This this game is a pinball game.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
And it's a D&D pinball game.
Oh.
So you get a party, it centers around a rogue, and then you get like a warrior, a cleric. They're all different balls.
Oh, yeah,
so the
okay.
rogue ball is quick, and it deals more damage to...
She has a dog.
And she deals more damage when she hits objects from behind, like sneak attack.
Right.
And if you hit enough things in a row, you build up a special bar, and then you can use it to use the ultimate of whichever ball you're using. And her ultimate is that her dog comes, and you have two balls, except the second ball is a little bit smaller. And the cleric, if just say you drain a ball,
Yep.
it's dead, and then you got to use a different party member.
Right. Okay, cool.
Except the cleric can res party members.
Can res balls. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's...
If you play as the ranger, you can, and you build your alt, you can release two balls, and your two balls are a couple of hawks. These hawks go around attacking things, and you just keep playing with your two balls at the same time.
I mean, that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do in your spare time.
You know what though? It plays quite well with the controller, right? Because it feels real good in your hands. No, but like because of the shoulder buttons are the bumpers, right? So
Right.
Yeah, and they actually do innovative things with digital pinball. Like at one point you're trying to release like a swordsman from a dungeon.
Yeah.
And you're playing basically two boards at the same time, except one's underneath a grate that you can kind of make out while you're trying to like use the swordsman to defeat the dungeon keeper at the same time you're trying to raid the castle.
This sounds
the
great.
top. And the game was $3 on a PS Plus sale, and it was playable both on the PS4 as well as the Vita. So
Oh, yeah,
you can just
cross-buy.
Yeah, it was a cross buy. So
Oh,
for $3,
cool.
you can put it on the Vita as well as the...
And now we have 2 Vitas, and so I loaded them up on both of them, and it's really good on the Vita as well.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot of space either. It's a small game, so even if you only have like a 4 gig memory card, since those memory cards are so expensive.
Yeah, so if you spent like $500 on a 4 gig memory card,
You gotta
this
fill
one
it
won't
up.
take up that much space.
Yeah. So that's what I've been playing. I've been playing a couple other things like Ultimate NES Remix, and we finished Yoshi's Woolly World, which we did on the channel. You can check that out on our YouTube.
Yeah, and it's like probably one of my favorite games on the Wii U. It was so much fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me want to go back like off camera and just finish, get a few more, like try to 100% it if I can. But some levels get really hard. Like it's, you know, it's appealing to children, but I can't even see how a kid could play through some of these levels. Are like really, really challenging.
Especially single player. Like we got through a lot of levels by bouncing on each other's heads.
Yeah.
Kathryn, do you have any other odds and ends?
Not really. It's but I saw like a blog post or something about Conan. Do you ever watch The Clueless Gamer when
No.
Conan O'Brien does video game reviews?
Oh, right.
And
Yeah,
he's,
no, I've seen
yeah, they're so much fun. They're really hilarious. His Fallout 4 one's pretty good, but he just tried VR for the first time.
that. Okay.
And he's like, you know, the only reason to have VR is to like simulate sex or whatever, right? And he's like, if I'm not having sex in VR, then what's the point? And then he plays his game. I can't even remember what it's called.
Something Heart. Something Harris
Williams Heart or something.
Yeah.
And he plays like a 60, he like looks at his hands and he's like, okay, you're an old man, because there's that guy Aaron who explains the games to him. He's like, and it's in black and white, so he's like, this is supposed to enhance reality. And I'm like a 65-year-old man and I see him black, and it's in black and white.
And I'm clumsy, I'm
and I'm-
dropping things.
It's really, really funny because he just doesn't care. Like, and if you want a really, really funny one to watch, like this is the newest one that's out, but find the one for Final Fantasy 15, and he just rips into that game, and then he finds out that the writers are just on the other side of the door, and he's like, and the only way out is to like go through this door past all
And
these.
they've been watching him
And
tear
he's
the
just
game up
been
for like
ripping
an hour.
into it, going, "Who would
That's
play
awesome.
this game? This game's ridiculous. Why would anyone waste their time with this?" And
But you know what? Conan O'Brien is Mr. Charisma, so he can. If anybody can get out there in the hallway and make
he can
those
talk himself
people-
out of that
yeah,
jam for sure.
He can talk
Yeah.
himself out of it.
Yeah.
Chris, the Flock Talk, Mr. Charisma. Do you have any odds and ends?
2 odds and ends.
He has an odd and an end.
I have an odd and an end. There's
Okay.
the odd is a game, a expansion for Netrunner. The card game just came out. It's called
Oh.
Terminal Directive. It is a legacy style game that came out where you need a core set of Netrunner, which is like I think $30, and then you buy this, and 2 people can play a story with a card game that's kind of like Magic the Gathering, but like a little bit different, where you're running your hackers. There's a corporation. The hackers trying to get into the corporation. The more interesting aspect of this is that game to game, you get to add cards to your deck based on what happened in each game.
Oh.
And then by the end, if you're a newer player, you should have a grasp on all of the mechanics. And it's a really cool way to get new people into the game. And
Oh,
like
that's
running.
really clever.
I wish that Magic would do something like this. Here's a small
There's no
box
jumping
set.
in point for Magic.
Oh
Like,
man, that would be so great.
Yeah, like here's a small box set.
and it has like mini boosters that you open
Yeah.
based on what happens.
Yeah.
People would go nuts for that.
Why? Why isn't that a thing? But that's a thing for Netrunner, and Netrunner's a fantastic game, also designed by Richard Garfield. So already a fantastic game. They didn't really change it too much. It's out there. They're going to print a ton of it. So if you're at all interested, now's the time to get it. Now's maybe not the time to get into competitive Netrunner for a variety of reasons that I could talk about at length. But now's the time to do this because you'll get probably 4 or 5 hours out of it. And at the end, you'll probably be able to put it away and say, oh yeah, no, I understand that. The end of the odds and end is
Okay.
that a new edition of Warhammer 40k is coming out, and it may rekindle the love of Warhammer 40k.
Really?
because I think they're going to simplify everything down to what they did with the other aspect of it. So if you were at all interested in doing or getting into that before, now is probably the time because a new edition's coming.
They have a pretty good marketing strategy too, probably the best Warhammer has had in a long time, because they also relaunched their website with it, and they relaunched they launched a Total War game, which people have been asking for, a Total War Warhammer game at the same time.
It's a full frontal attack.
They've really changed what they were doing, because I remember, say, 5-6 years ago, they were not at all interested in engaging with the community, and it really showed. They didn't care at all. And now someone has taken over that is engaging the community, ask them what they want. The models are still the models. The models are amazing. So if you're at all interested in, modeling in that aspect of it, but I think you will not have to read a 100-page rulebook. And that's a good thing. The game may be bad, but at least you won't have to spend a whole lot of time learning it before you figure out it's bad, like the last iteration of Warhammer. So there you go.
Well, that's awesome. Chris, good job.
Hey, thanks. Hey, thanks, guys.
Thank you all for listening to Flock Talk. We've been doing this for half a year now, so I just want to say thanks to everybody who's been with us and listening to all these episodes.
Yeah, it's been nice.
Again, if you'd like to reach us, you can definitely do that by contacting us on Twitter at Flock of Nerds, or leaving some comments on our videos on YouTube. We also have a MySpace, and you can check us out on ICQ.
Send us a message on ICQ.
Oh, we still haven't set up a
website.
Tumblr. We need to set up a Tumblr because of Ramvox curses.
Thank you all so much for watching and listening, and till next time, bye.